Good afternoon, Rotarians. It's been a great week. It's been a great week. It's been a great week to be a Rotarian in Cincinnati. Stay seated for just a few seconds. It's been a great week to be a Rotarian in Cincinnati, and today is no different. We get to honor celebrate the life of one of our longtime Rotarians. We get to hear from the person who is effectively the mayor of Northern Kentucky. Earlier this week, we participated in the celebration, a press conference where Christ Hospital announced a $25,000 gift. The Hamilton County Commissioners announced a $125,000 gift to the Rotary effort to make sure that there are AEDs in every sheriff's car in this community. So hats off to past President Steve King for leading that effort. On Tuesday, we had a phenomenal happy hour run by our young professionals, celebrating again the opportunity to do Rotary different. If you can't make it to a Thursday meeting, you can celebrate with us every first Tuesday with our young professionals at a different location in this city. And then yesterday, I received an email from Rotary International's district chairman saying, "Congratulations, Doug, and the Rotary Club of Cincinnati. We all know that we are the 17th oldest club in this world, but did you know that we are the 23rd largest club in this world? 23 out of 30,000 clubs in this world." Just an amazing opportunity for all of us to embrace the life of being a Rotarian, and we do that every single week by starting out ourselves singing the Star Spangled Banner and praying together. Janet Metzelaar, will you lead us in the national anthem?
Thank you, Doug. Okay, I'm going to give you the note. Okay, and this is a spirited rendering of the Star Spangled Banner, so give it your all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Let us pray. Bless Rotarians here and around the world who gather every week in the spirit of service and peace. Thank you for this chance to be together, share this meal, and commit to service above self. Thank you to Lori Leonard, who has given her life to commit to saving lives through AEDs and has been part of the leadership to bring these to our firefighters. May we bless each other, live with a spirit of peace and love, and enjoy this meal today. Amen. Oh, I'm so sorry. I knew that. So could we all say together the four-way test of things we think, believe, and how we guide our lives? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Please stay standing. Please stay standing as Peter Baden leads us in a memorial of our past Rotarian. Peter?
Thanks, Doug. Born August 4th, 1937, Hans, I'm going to try this, I didn't want you to tell me, Joachim Papke came from Germany to Cincinnati after he became engaged to Uta in 1963. They met in October of 1962, and he asked her to marry him in December of that year. Uta had decided to work a year in Germany after college. She had immigrated to the USA in 1957 with her parents. Her father was a civil engineer. Uta and Hans were together for 60 and a half years. Family sitting over here. I'll do the count. We've got 3 daughters, Annette, Kern, Michelle Westrich, and Evelyn Dahlmeyer, plus 4 grandchildren and a great-granddaughter. Hans spoke no English and worked for a large advertising studio designing convention displays for companies such as Coca-Cola, BMW, Volkswagen, and more throughout Europe. He was hired by CG&E as a manager thanks to his extensive portfolio and worked for them for 49 years. A quote from a former colleague at EducateNKY and fellow Rotarian Steve Brash, "The train display was always bright and different each and every year. More than 400,000 people saw it every year." Hans won all kinds of recognition and awards for the holiday train show, including the 1995 Community Service Award from the Chamber. Only a few of us knew how he reused old set pieces and stretched every dollar to make something that kids of all ages returned year after year to see. He made the holiday train the community icon that it became. His entire life, Hans also painted. He had a master's degree from the Volkheim Academy in Essen and went to UC's DAAP Evening College, and then a number of years at the Art Academy, where he received numerous scholarships. Hans gave his talents to the community. While he worked 40 or more hours a week, he did the design and creation of the decorations for 2 Beaux Arts balls at the Art Museum, which raised money for the Art Academy. Currently, there is still a Hans J. Papke art show at the Sportsman's Club on Red Bank Road, thanks to art dealer Mary Rand of Hyde Park. Uta and Hans attended 8 international Rotary conferences and went to San Diego for her training as governor of District 6670. They also were among the founders of the Munich Sister Society in 1989. Hans assisted in bringing bands, musicians, students, teachers, artists from Germany, and last but not least, the piece of the Berlin Wall that sits on the south side of the Freedom Center. Hans was also a member of the FC Bayern Cincinnati Over the Rhine fan club, the Cincinnati McDowell Society, and of course, the Rotary Club of Cincinnati. He's also, needless to say, a huge fan of FC Cincinnati. Hans signs a contract with Uta on his 80th birthday to hang around with Uta and the rest of the family for 25 more years, and then we shall renegotiate. Hans was almost 86. What a great life. My wife, Carol, and I know that Hans has a special fondness for pups, and that he is likely sitting in a cozy chair watching a football game with our pup Friday asleep in his lap. A kinder, gentler soul you will never know. May God bless you and your family, Uta.
So Uta, thank you for sharing Hans with us. A moment of silence for Hans. All right, welcoming our visitors and guests is our Sergeant at Arms, Dan Long. Dan?
Thank you, President Doug, and thank you, Rotarians, for bringing guests to this meeting. So our first guest is Emily Buckley from First Student. She's brought here by Angie Ferguson. Brad McGonigal, who is brought here by me from the CEO of St. Vincent de Paul, and he will be going to classification committee, and actually St. Vincent de Paul will be coming in today as a corporate member of the Rotary Club. Cheryl Bessel is from B, Northern Kentucky. She's the marketing director, a guest of Judy Pogue. Dan Gronick is brought here by Ali Hussein. He is retired from U.S. Bank. And Jim Yunker brought Danielle Gentry Barth, a vice president of Easter Seals. And we have a very special guest and a flag exchange, there we go, from the Bahamas Rotary Club, the club of Eleuthera, Eldecia Thompson, for a flag exchange. Welcome to Cincinnati Rotary. And we have Caitlin Lenhart, Vice President from St. Vincent de Paul, that is here with us today as well. Emily Moss, who is a nutritionist with Thrivivest. She's a guest of Stephanie Sheard, and she will also be going to the classification committee today. Nancy Spivey is brought here by Judy Pogue. She's a vice president of the Northern Kentucky Chamber of Commerce. Courtney Clyer brought Paul Clyer from the city of Blue Ash. And finally, the third member of the trifecta of St. Vincent de Paul is Sonny Johnson Lane. So again, thank you to all the Rotarians. Again, the month of August is going to be a great month to bring a prospect to a meeting. We have a Rotary After Hours event. We have a neighborhood coffee event. We have the Interfab CEO, the UC Health CEO, Hamilton County Sheriff Appreciation. Those are three fantastic meetings to bring a prospect to. So please go through your index cards and find somebody to bring to a meeting. Thank you very much.
Great job, Dan. Thank you so much. Again, continuing, Dan already highlighted some great ways for all of you visitors and guests to return to us. Here's a couple of more. So on Monday, we invite all of you Rotarians to join Janet Metzelar and Mario Domingo to go out to CVG at about 7 o'clock. To welcome our exchange student from Japan. So if you would like to participate in that welcoming, please see Janet. She can give you the details on exactly where we are going to meet. Coming up in a couple of weeks, our next breakfast, Dan alluded to that, is August 22nd. Michael, what's the location again? Fulton Yards, Norwood on August 22nd. And then on Friday, August 25th, Uta is opening up her house for our next Rotary After Hours. So look in your DACDB, your app, Hopefully you've got that downloaded on your phone, and you can make your reservations for both the breakfast as well as the Rotary after hours. Looking forward, we welcome and invite all of you Rotarians as well as our guests to join us in Due Days. That's October 26th, 27th, and 28th. So make sure that you go on to CincinnatiRotary.org. If you use the app, I'm sorry, not your app, but the mobile device, and going to CincinnatiRotary.org, just scroll down just a little bit and you'll find a link that will take you to the Rotary page that has all the details about all of the opportunities for you to volunteer on Rotary Due Days. If you're on your either desktop or a device that isn't mobile friendly, you have to go to the Events tab and you'll see Rotary Due Days, and you can click through and get to all of the details. All right, our meeting sponsor today. I'm not sure how he's sponsoring the meeting today because Bob is involved in so many organizations, so I don't want to tee it up incorrectly, but suffice to say, I've been a member of Rotary now for I don't know how many years, but Bob has always been here, shoulder to shoulder, member of our program committee, really making sure that we have some phenomenal programs. He's a lawyer. His name is on the door. That's all you need to know. Let's give a round of applause for our sponsor, Bob Buechner.
Thank you, President Doug. The day before a breakthrough occurs, it is a crazy idea. Recently, a Princeton University professor noted that the Clean Air Act has had the unintended consequence of making solar rays more powerful because of the absence of particulates in our atmosphere. So here we are with solar warming being a problem, and we have a wonderful member, Gary Walton, who has shared with us solar panels. And if you look at these things, they are getting increasingly thin. Why don't we develop flying solar sheets that can hover over communities? Think of Phoenix, for example. They would be powered by drones, and the drones could lift them up in the morning and return them at night to their launching pad. I think this could be an incredible difference in terms of the future of our country and even the world. This is not yet a breakthrough. What is a breakthrough is what Attorney Joe Daner has done in creating solar-powered drip irrigation that is used in Colombia, South America, and Rotarian Ariel Miller is marketing this on a global basis. Big things are happening. And the video of Joe's presentation to a professional development series is available on our website. If you have not watched it, please do it. This is an amazing development. And Joe, by the way, has already been marketing solar-powered refrigerators in Central Africa. So there are big goings-ons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. And let's have a little bit of fun. Split the pot. And our pot today, for the winner, you get $39. The other $39 goes into membership development, and some funding also goes to help the club with some other activities. The rolling pot is $519. And the winning ticket number is 298608. Awesome, Carol Cerrone. All right, Carol, let's see if you can pick the Queen of Hearts and win that rolling pot. So close. So we have a ton of Rotarians who are celebrating birthdays this week. None of them are here, so let's not even talk about them. They're out somewhere in the world. I know Lisa Lickard is in Las Vegas having the time of her life on her birthday. Family of Rotary News, we want to congratulate John Doherty and Messa McGuire, who completed a 500-mile ride last week with intense hills, 100-degree days, a 500-mile bike ride, and a thunderstorm. We want to congratulate Sam Schutte on the breaking ground of a new his company's new renewable natural gas plant in St. Bernard that occurred on July 27th. And finally, let's give a big round of applause to all of these Rotarians, including Mark Supine for wrapping up as committee chair the successful summer of Camp Allen balloon rides. Big round of applause for all of those. All right, what have I failed to do, Rotarians? What have I failed to do? No, that's next. That's next. What have I failed to do? Well, I didn't mention it. I already did check on my phone, so make sure that you do check in on your phone. Reservations for next week. There we go. Make sure that you make your reservations for next week by 5 p.m. tomorrow to hear our great speaker next week, Dave Hershey, CEO of EnerFab, one of the largest privately held companies here in Greater Cincinnati. Again, Friday, 5 p.m. is your deadline in DACDB to register for next week's meeting. All right, today's guest. When the Ohio governor wants to get things done, he pulls together the mayors of Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Columbus, and he gets things done. When the governor of Kentucky wants to get things done, he pulls together the mayor of Lexington and Louisville, and then he looks north and says, how do I pick the person that's going to get things done in northern Kentucky when there are 90 jurisdictions, 7 or 8 counties, and multitudes of community leaders? Who do I turn to? That dilemma was the result of a lot of discussion in northern Kentucky over the last 3 decades. And now Northern Kentuckians have an organization, OneNKY Alliance, that is designated to be the organization that brings all of Northern Kentucky's disparate parties, school systems, judge executives, county and city commissions, villages, city leaders together to be able to make decisions and move Northern Kentucky forward. We're delighted to have the CEO of that organization as our speaker today. Karen Finan started her career in the real estate business at Duke Realty, one of the largest commercial real estate developers in our community. She then moved to work in the jobs magnet in Northern Kentucky, the Tri-County Economic Development Corporation. Then she spent a little bit of time working in the recruiting business with Gilman Partners. And then in 2017, was named CEO of the OneNKY Alliance. Let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Karen Finan.
Well, thank you all, and it is so great to be here. But I have to say, when you referenced me as the mayor of Northern Kentucky, I thought, is Dan Gronick speaking today? Dan is the retired president of U.S. Bank and well revered in the community. But, you know, I will admit to being a politician, not an elected official, but we're all politicians, so I will admit to that. We're very blessed to have Doug at the Metropolitan Club. As many of you know, he joined the club a little under a year ago, seeing tremendous transformation with him at the club, but also in the region. And I think that's what the effort underway is about, OneNKY Alliance. You know, every community reaches a point where they have to seize the moment and they have to become the best version of themselves. How do we improve? How do we look 10, 15, 20 years out? And that's what the OneNKY Alliance is all about. We are a group of 22 presidents and CEOs from around the region who have banded together starting in 2017 with a call for transformation. So much great work had been accomplished over the last several decades through visioning processes and a number of great things, but like everything, models time out. It's time to move on to a different vision, a different view. Trends change, people change. And there was a recognition in Northern Kentucky that we were at that point, that there were still some fundamental building blocks that needed to be put into place for our community to really reach its full potential. So coming together with a mission to really transform Northern Kentucky by mobilizing leaders around tangible causes, focused on unity, as Doug mentioned, because of our fragmentation, and world-class standards in health and education. We work together as a group, and again, these are presidents and CEOs from leading companies from around the market, and we really agreed on our guiding principles in terms of what we stood for. And that was a really important exercise early on with the organization for the benefit of the group at hand, the board at hand, but also the community. And we committed to be bold action on the part of the community. We're not the chamber, we're not BNKY, we're not Meet NKY, which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau. There are groups that are very specifically assigned to transformative efforts. We fill in the gaps. We identify areas of complexity or a void where Northern Kentucky may not have a presence and commit to actually taking those on. You can see some of our board members, leading members from leading companies, from across the region. They just have to have a passion for Northern Kentucky and commit to put time, talent, and treasures in this. This is a very engaged group, just like this organization here. I know the heart, a servant's heart. I find this with our board as well. We meet every bit of 11 times a year, but in between there's so much engagement around initiatives and pushing things forward. So we really are looking to have an impactful voice on the governance of Northern Kentucky, but also a voice and a brand within the region and within the state. As we looked at different things, the unity piece really became important. How do we bring Northern Kentucky together, given its current framework? 36 cities, 3 counties, 17 school districts, you name it, it's out there, extremely fragmented. But we've always been able to work together within the region, but also within Northern Kentucky through the judges, executives who are our highest elected officials, but also through handshakes and agreements that have helped move Northern Kentucky forward. As we look at that though, 10, 15 years out, that might not be the right model. And so looking at government efficiencies, how do we do more, better, is really something that we take a hard look at. A big void in our market was the media void. Who's going to cover Northern Kentucky exclusively? We might be able to get, at the time, some of the local media outlets to cover some of the topics, but no one was just assigned to Boone, Kenton, and Campbell counties. So we looked at that, and in Northern Kentucky, 400,000 strong, people will wring their hands and say, nobody hears us, we don't have a platform. That was a challenge to our group. We then went out, we bought 2 media outlets, we merged them, we hired a CEO, and we now have LINKnky, or LINKnky. And this is an independent news platform that covers Boone, Kenton, and Campbell County. It is produced digitally on a daily basis, and it is also now paper of record and goes out in print to every resident in 3 counties. That was important for our community because, good or bad, we now have a platform that all community members can go to, pitch a story, and tell the story of Northern Kentucky. So they've come a long way in the last 2 years, and so OneNKY Alliance has incubated and launched this effort. OneNKY Frankfort, another hand-wringing in the community. We don't have voice, we don't have presence in Frankfort, our commonwealth, our capital. How do we use influence? How do we get funding? Well, must be present to win. And as we looked around and really talked about what could be the solution, it was a physical presence. We have to be there. You've got Louisville, Lexington, convenient drive into the capital. For Northern Kentuckians, we were great about going to the Capitol and a lot of great things had happened, but how long do you stay when you don't really have a place to land? Fast forward, we bought this facility at 418 Capitol Avenue. It is literally within walking distance to the Capitol. We just recently placed a monument sign that you can see in the lower left-hand corner that sports OneNKY. We're the only municipality that can actually claim a presence. There's a lot of industry groups and things like that, but we have a brand and presence in Frankfort that is now becoming much more recognized. So again, a physical testament to what we've been doing. That's a co-working event space. We hold receptions there. A lot of high-level legislators, dignitaries, et cetera, come in when they need a quiet place to meet outside of the Capitol. And it's proven very, very effective for our community. And I would just offer to anybody in this room who finds themselves in Frankfort, please give me a call if you'd like to see the house. Would love to show or arrange for that. Or if you have a need for space while in Frankfort for an hour or for an afternoon, it's a community piece, so we'd like to offer that. Recently announced has been the OneNKY Center. This has been 5 years in the making. You heard me speak earlier about the shared governance piece. Well, until our growth organizations, and by that I mean chamber, economic development, urban renewal, Convention and Visitors Bureau, community funds, my group, until we walk the walk, we can't expect the municipalities to do the same. This project had been identified actually in 1981 through a visioning process. We called it at the time a multi-association building. And it carried through with each visioning process that Northern Kentucky conducted, and we're famous for conducting a lot of visioning processes. It stuck in there. And so when we started this group, we went back and looked at all the visions that had been collected together, what still had relevance, where could we still find transformation, and this clearly was one of them. So in partnership with the Catalytic Fund, we went ahead and developed the OneNKY Center. And we will be breaking ground at the end of August for this. All of our growth organizations that I mentioned will actually be under one roof in this building. It'll be at the foot of the suspension bridge. And again, it's more than a building. It's a brand, it's a voice. It'll be a place for economic growth, opportunities and activities where talents and businesses can come and get the resources they need. What's very exciting about this is that the life sciences labs will be on the second floor. Through work of a lot of people, Senator McDaniel, Chris Knuckleman, Judge Exec of Kenton County, City of Covington, Tim Schroeder of CTI, we were able to receive a grant of $15 million to do something with life sciences in Northern Kentucky, which is a target industry. And as we received the $15 million, they started to look at where does this make sense to have physically located. We pitched and competed for the project. They came in, they're gonna be on the second floor of this, and this will be an R&D facility for phase 1 scientists who maybe just need a bench and a hood or a place to do their phase 1 experiments. And the intent is they incubate and grow the IRS site, which is literally down the street, there'll be opportunity for additional development there. So we're extremely excited about that. We also have added the Northern Kentucky Bar Association. Part of this building, everybody in there is nonprofits. The Port Authority of Northern Kentucky, a division of BNKY, will own the building, and Kenton County actually guaranteed the bonds. And I mentioned that capital stack information because it took so many people to do this one project, starting in 1981, but in earnest in 2017, 2018. So big news on that front, and I think in terms of a focus on a specific industry will really help to catapult Northern Kentucky. Just the use of our influence is something else that our group looks at. How do we use the influence of those around the table, of those in the community, to really get the funding, the policy, the things that our community needs to grow and transform. And so as a board, we certainly look at that quite a bit. We also hold an annual summit series, again, open invitation to anybody in this room who would like to attend. but we bring community and business leaders together to talk about not just issues facing us, but different initiatives that are growing out of this. And we've announced a number of things over the course of the year, but these are people that are already leading in their community and their business, and we've held this since 2019. Last year we brought a futurist in, Christopher Rice out of Austin, Texas, and he predicted a lot of things that made a lot of people in the room nervous. You fast forward to this year, and a lot of his stuff is coming true, so a little scary there. But October 25th is our date for that if anybody's interested. So unity, those things that I just went through are very tangible, measurable results that are building blocks for our community. They were voids in the community. We feel like now after 5-6 years, those are in place and we can leverage those to the advantage not only of Northern Kentucky, but of the Cincinnati MSA and the Commonwealth. But our focus also brings us to health. World-class standards in health, because it impacts economic development, it impacts the perception, it impacts education levels. We've been involved in prevention programs related to tobacco, vaping, et cetera. We're the fiduciary for something called Breathe Easy. There's a much larger group, including the Northern Kentucky Chamber, St. Elizabeth, Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky, the Health Department, Interact for Health, and several national health organizations who over the last 4 years, since 2019, have really worked to pass a smoke-free ordinance in each of our communities. We are still not smoke-free. And from an economic development standpoint, that's hurtful, and the perception is not good either. And so when you flip that to be on the positive side, working toward a healthy, vibrant population, this is one, again, tangible way that we can make our way toward that goal. After a lot of work, we have now 3 cities who have gone smoke-free in Campbell County. All of Kenton County has an ordinance for smoke-free. It's not comprehensive, but they are considered smoke-free. But we're working our way city by city to get this ordinance passed. And we're very committed to it because it represents a healthy population. So you look at the infrastructure of Northern Kentucky and on the health side, outside of the policy side, how do you impact infrastructure that creates an opportunity for people to enjoy the riverfront or bike trails throughout our suburbs? South Bank Partners is the fiduciary for Riverfront Commons, but we've invested in it as a group. We recognize that this is an important vision for our community. Our Northern Kentucky riverfront needs to be developed. We need to have that vision. So we've invested $1 million+ into this plan, and South Bank recently received a $3.7 million grant that I think will help really paint the picture of what this is to be. We're involved with the Army Corps of Engineers with this. The project has been very complex and delayed, but just like all the other things I've shown you on the board, it takes years to get to where we want to be, and I'm thinking this is going to be, in the near term, we're going to see some progress. And finally, world-class standards in education, so unity, health, education. This was probably one of our biggest concerns in Northern Kentucky, the educational levels in general. Kentucky ranks 47th in the country. Our state scores are a bit higher than that, but it's not acceptable. And folks around our board said, we have to do something, but what do we do? Early on, we invested in Ignite Institute. That was not our project. That's a project through Toyota and Boone and Kent and Campbell counties. This is a STEAM-based curriculum public high school. They now have a waiting list of 400 students. It's been very successful. It's out in Boone County. How do we replicate that? How do we launch that? How do we lift that? So we financially and strategically supported it, and to this day they're doing great, but we knew we needed to do more. And so over the last 18 months or so, we've really looked at the education levels. We've talked to the CBC and the CRBC, Tim Fogarty, Gary Lindgren, many folks from that organization has worked with us so that we can look at it from a regional standpoint. And we got to the point that we said, we need to incubate and launch a new effort separate from ours that can be totally focused on education. So we launched it in March. We hired Tim Hanner in May. He is a retired school superintendent from Kenton County, but also an entrepreneur in the education field. He has put together a governing board, 4 of which the OneNKY Alliance board members sit, plus an advisory council. And he's getting ready to do a landscape assessment, not to find out what we already know, but to get input from all sources of audiences, parents, students, educators, business and community leaders. And I invite you to take part in that because there will be room for the region and the input there. Tim will be coming up with a playbook on what's next. And so that's a really important effort for us. We were able to stand it up financially and separately from the OneNKY Alliance. So much going on. That's just kind of high level where we've been over the 5-6 years. And we've been quiet on purpose because, as I've told Doug, in past conversations, everything we've talked about could have gone away in a wisp. The smoke-free, the building. So much is dependent on, 6 growth organizations agreeing to be under one roof and their boards, the Frankfort effort. But we're really at a point, I believe, in Northern Kentucky where there is camaraderie and respect and people working together. And so where we take it from here is going to be important for the vision of the next 10 to 15 years. I thank you for your attention. Glad to answer any questions, but I certainly appreciate all the service work that this club does, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
Education is important, imperative for the future of the world. And with what you're talking about in Kentucky and the challenges that we face there, my question is in regards to charter schools. So many urban metropolitan areas, which Northern Kentucky is one of, have been finding charter schools to be beneficial for the parents and children. What's going on with charter schools in Northern Kentucky?
It's a great question, and I think it's a very timely question as well. And as we looked at education in Northern Kentucky, one of the active conversations was around the funding of charter schools, the legislation of charter schools. In 2017, there was legislation that allowed charter schools to be in existence, but there was no funding mechanism for the money to follow the students. So charter schools could come into the market, but no funding. And so you fast forward, there was legislation introduced that was defeated, and we expect that to be picked up in the 2024 session. We're, as we look at the EducateNKY effort, we are focused on improved student outcomes, whether you are in public charter, private, alternatives. And if there are better alternatives, opening the door for that. And so the conversation around charter schools has been highly charged, to say the least. But it's a welcome conversation because it will create innovation and discussion about what we should be. And when we put the advisory council together, and Tim is picking this up and moving forward with it, we purposely put folks with all types of what I call passion points, people who were very passionate about ed choice or the charter legislation or public schools. And we purposely did that because we wanted all areas to be represented. There was a lot of discussion in December when NKU was asked to be an authorizer of the charter schools, and that did not take shape. But what we found was that we needed the community to come together to have a conversation, no matter what your point of view was. And so I think as a community, that really drove the formation of EducateNKY. I'm not sure where we'll land up with it, but I think it's out there. There's a lot of support for it. There are people interested in that form of education. And so we're keeping the doors open, all focused on improved student outcomes, all focused on the student populations who need this. And when we started this effort, we knew we couldn't boil the ocean, to take on every 17 school district, public, private, et cetera. We knew that would become quickly ineffective. And so what we said was, let's focus on the student populations and the communities who are most in need. That will drive us, we think, to the urban core, but until the landscape assessment comes back, we don't know the answers yet, and so we want to be able to include feedback from everyone across the community. But great timely question, and I think in 2024, this will become very active legislation.
Yes, is NKU involved in any of these efforts?
Absolutely. Ginny Fair, their Dean of Academics or Education, we did information sessions in November on public schools, and then we did another session on public charter and private. And it was really to level set the landscape for about 80 different people who we felt could move the needle on the education front. NKU was very active and is very active with this effort. So in fact, Ginny is on the advisory council, and we have several other members from NKU active as well. They're critical to this.
Going from the northern side of the river, where city and county governments can't get together on anything, obviously you put all this together, but how do you keep parochialism out of all these decisions? You have a wide range of objectives out there and goals and so forth. How do you keep everybody from fighting for their own turf and really try to keep the unified?
Yeah, I would say we have not eliminated that, and I think that's what pushes the that's what pushes the community forward. But I will say, with the fundamental building blocks that I talked about earlier, we can now leverage that, and there's room to come together and unify. That's part of what the summit is about. That's part of what BNKY does every day, our economic development group. They cover 3 counties in northern Kentucky, and they focus on industries of choice that are matched to the region. So there's a lot of open discussion around that. I would say clearly you can't stop all of that, and there's pride in neighborhoods and communities, things like that. But through our tools that we now have in place, there's now gathering spots, and I feel like there's more community discussion. Great relationships amongst the judges, executives in all 3 of the counties, and that certainly is a linchpin, because without those strong relationships and the county, kind of driving that, you would have just a lot of disparity, if you will. 17 school districts, there's a unifying group called the Co-op. They bring those superintendents together. But each of those superintendents are working for their school district. So, it just begs to be reviewed as the community matures, what type of model is really right for northern Kentucky.
Where is the new OneNKY building going to go? Is that going to be at the old Coach 4 site, the restaurant?
Well, it's at the foot of the Roebling Bridge, and so the ascent is right in that area. There's a restaurant called The Gruff, and then right behind it is a surface parking lot, and it'll go on that surface parking lot. So, and it's 44,000 square feet. Without the Life Science Center, it would have been about 33,000 square feet, 4-story, and the design really matches up with the neighborhood. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thank you all. I'm sorry.
We couldn't hear you.
Well, private, the capital stack, for instance, I'll use the OneNKY Center as an example. Gene Shore of the Catalytic Fund and I started on the philanthropic side to start the capital stack and raised $1 million or so from different foundations. They were early believers in the concept and helped us to get going. The tenants will pay rent, and we issued bonds for that particular thing. So each initiative, there's a different driver, if you will. But a lot of times it's private enterprise that is coming forward, and in some cases it's a public-private partnership. So one of the things that we don't do are annual campaigns. I've got 22 regional companies around the table who are willing to fund different things, and it's not our intent to dry up the pool for others. We're not a foundation. We have the Horizon Community Fund to do that. But if it's an initiative we're deep into, we'll go out and raise the money for it. And we have found the counties to be very open. We want them to be a little bit more open, but the Commonwealth as well. Good question. Thank you.
Awesome, Karen. Stay right here. Thank you for speaking. We'll be making a donation in your name to Rotary International as a part of our Polio End Now campaign. We appreciate that. I also have this coin that has the 4-way test on it. And then on the front of the coin is actually, let's see, a picture of the skyline of Cincinnati that you actually have to be standing in northern Kentucky to see this skyline. So I think you'd appreciate that. Thank you very, very much for speaking with us. So don't forget to make your reservations for next week's meeting by Friday at 4 p.m. Don't forget as well about our upcoming events, August 22nd breakfast and August 25th Rotary after hours at Uta's house. And one final note, we still have some Reds tickets available, so go on to DACDB for the September 6th game. Thank you all for being here. Go out and create hope in the world. Our meeting is adjourned.